In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn yourself into a hot girl or any other character in real time. You can just live stream yourself like this. Best of all, this AI is free and open source, and you can use it with just a consumer grade GPU. Let's jump right in. Alright, so the tool is called PersonaLive, and it's actually really easy to use. Here's what the interface looks like, and don't worry, in the latter half of this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to set this up. But first, let's dive right in with some demos. So at the top here is where I can upload a reference character, which I want to turn into. For example, let's upload this hot girl, and then I can choose the frames per second. Now, I'm not running a really high-end GPU, so let's decrease this to something like 17, and then let's click on Fuse Reference. And then afterwards, I can click on Start Animation to start my webcam. And as you can maybe hear, my GPU is firing up, and now I am streaming as this hot girl in real time. Next, let me test out some different expressions. So I'm going to smile first. Doesn't look too bad except for her teeth, which are kind of warping over time. Next, I'm going to show a frown. So that also works pretty well. Now, for research purposes, of course, next I'm also going to try to cross my eyes and stick my tongue out. And that also works beautifully. So there you go. Here is how you can turn yourself into a hot girl in real time. Now, let me stop the animation first. Next, let's try another character. So I'm going to, again, adjust the driving frames per second to like 15 so it doesn't kill my GPU. And then let's upload this evil sorceress, and then click on Fuse Reference, and then Start Animation. Hope you can hear my GPU firing up right now, and here is this evil sorceress. Now, one thing to note is that I'm using 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which is not low, but it's also not like high end. So for your reference, 4090 has 24 gigabytes of VRAM. At least for me, I'm getting like 1 to 2 seconds of delay, so there's still some considerable latency here. But it's still really impressive. Like, I've been playing around with a ton of open source video generators, but I've never encountered one which even come close to streaming in real time. So this is very impressive. Next, let me stop the animation and swap out another character. Alright, next, let me try this cute Pixar character, and here is where we start to see some nightmare fuel stuff. So it doesn't seem to work well with these cute 3D characters with, exaggerated proportions. Next, I'm also going to try an anime character, and as you can see, this is also pretty awful. So it seems like this PersonaLive tool only works for characters with more human-like faces. But I mean, that's really the only thing you need it for, is to turn yourself into a hot girl. Because gentlemen, here's the thing. If you want to get rich fast, forget about building an AI startup or a SaaS company or day trading or any of that. The best way to print millions is to just use this tool to turn yourself into a cute girl and then make an OnlyFans account and then milk the hell out of your fans. You can easily make millions fast. Mwah. But all jokes aside, if this is of interest to you, then next let's go over how we can set this up. Now, just a warning, you're going to have to go through some pain in order to install this, but I'm going to make it as simple as possible for you to follow along. So here is their GitHub repo. Let's scroll down a bit, and here are all the instructions you need to get started. First of all, note that you do need a minimum of 12 gigabytes of VRAM to run this. And again, note that for me, I have 16 gigabytes, but there's still like a 1 to 2 second lag, so it's not like exactly real time, but it's very close. Anyways, let's go over this step by step. First of all, I'm using Windows, and you do need to have Git installed on your computer first. If you don't have Git, here is how to install it. If you already have Git installed, feel free to skip to the next section. So all we got to do is download the latest release for whatever operating system you're using. So I'm using Windows, so I'm just going to click on download for Windows. I'm running 64-bit, so I'm going to click on this to download, and it's now downloading this exe file. So once that's completed, all we got to do is open that exe file and then follow the steps. So I'm going to click on next. I'm just going to go with the default install location, which is program files/git. So I'll click next for that. And then I'm just going to leave this at the default. And then I'm going to click next again and click next here. We're just going to use the default settings for all of these. There's a lot of settings that you need to go through, so I'm just going to click next for all of these. All right, and then it should go ahead and install all the files, so this might take a few minutes. Perfect, so now we have Git installed. All right, now assuming you do have Git installed, the first step is to clone this repo. Now you can clone this wherever you want, but for me, I'm just going to clone it on my desktop. So to do that, I need to open up my desktop, and then at the top here, I'm going to type cmd to open up command prompt within my desktop. And then afterwards, I can just copy this line and then paste it in here to clone this repository onto my desktop. All right, after that's done, on your desktop, you should see this new PersonaLive folder. So I'm just going to drag it out here and expand this for you. And note that this should contain the same files and folders that you see on this GitHub repo. Anyways, the next step is to change our directory to this new PersonaLive folder, because if you open up command prompt again, notice that right now we are still in desktop. So let's paste this line in to go into this new PersonaLive folder. And then the next step is we need to create a Conda virtual environment. And this requires that you have Conda installed. If you don't, here's how to install it. If you already have Conda installed, feel free to skip to the next section. And actually what I'm going to do is install mini Conda. This is a minimalist version of Anaconda. If you install the full Anaconda, it installs a lot of packages and dependencies that you might not need. This just takes up more room on your computer, and of course the installation time is a bit longer. But with mini Conda, it's just a bare bones package, and you can always install additional packages and dependencies afterwards. So I'm on this page, and you could download the latest version of Anaconda, which is for Python 3.13, but 3.13 tends to not work very well with the latest AI models. So you should go with like 3.12 or 3.11. So instead, I'm going to click on this link, repo.anaconda.com, and here you will find a list of different installers for different operating systems and Python versions. So for example, you could go with 3.12 or 3.11. So if you want to install 3.12, here is the Windows version. So you can install this, or this one, 3.11 for Windows, also works. All right, after downloading the exe, I'm going to open this up and it's going to launch this installer. So I'm going to click next and then agree, and then let's set this to all users. I'm going to go with the default destination folder, and then I'm going to check this as well, clear the package cache upon completion. This just gives you back some more disk space without affecting functionality. All right, once that's completed, let's click next, and then we are finished. Now we aren't done yet, so if you open up the command prompt and you type in conda -- version, you're still going to see that Conda is not recognized. This is because we haven't added Anaconda to our path yet. So let's exit out of this, and then to add it to our path, we simply search for this function, edit the system environment variables. We're going to click on this and then click on environment variables and then click on the one that says path and then click edit. And here's where you add in the path of Anaconda. So it depends where you installed Anaconda. For me, I installed it in program data. So it's going to be in program data / mini Conda. And then if I double click on scripts, you can see that Conda is here. So this is the folder we want to paste in. So I'm going to right click on this and then copy as path. And then back in the environment variables window, I'm going to click new and then paste in the path here and then click OK and then OK and then OK again. Now, if you open up command prompt again and type in conda -- version, you should see that we are running 24.5.0. So this shows that we have successfully installed Anaconda. All right, so assuming you do have Conda installed, the next step is to copy this line, and then going back to our command prompt within this PersonaLive folder, I'm going to paste this line here, and this is basically going to use Conda to create a new virtual environment called PersonaLive. And this environment is going to use Python 3.10. Here it's asking me, do I want to proceed? So let me type Y and then enter. And the point of creating a virtual environment is you can think of this as like a separate hard drive on your computer that houses all the packages and dependencies that are needed for PersonaLive. And this ensures that PersonaLive will run smoothly and it doesn't conflict with existing stuff you have on your computer. Alright, so afterwards you should see this line again with no error messages. So next, let's copy this line to use Conda to activate our new virtual environment, which we called PersonaLive. So I'm going to paste this in here and then press enter. And if you see your virtual environment name in parentheses at the start of the line, then that means you are within your virtual environment. All right, so the next step is we can use pip to install all the requirements that this tool needs. So let me copy this line and then paste it in here. So now it's proceeding to download everything, including Torch and Torch Vision, which are quite large in size. All right, after that's done, you should see this line again with no error messages. So the next step is we need to download the model weights. Now there's two ways you can download this. You can just run this line to automatically download everything, or you can click from any of these places. For example, let me click on Google Drive, and here they have the weights for you to download. So what you can do is just click on these three dots and then download everything, and it's going to basically zip everything for you to download at once. If I open this folder, notice that it contains 3 folders, and if I open one of these folders, notice that each folder contains a ton of different models. Now I'm lazy, so what I'm going to do is just copy this line and then paste it in here. And this should automatically download everything, as you can see here. Now the total size of everything is like several gigabytes, so this is going to take a while to download depending on the speed of your internet. I've reviewed a ton of AI creation tools, but the best and easiest platform for content creation is definitely Lovart, the sponsor of this video. You can get it to create posters, media kits, app designs, and even entire video commercials with sound. They've included Nano Banana Pro, which makes it extremely easy to create and edit assets with the best image generator out there. Nano Banana Pro and Lovart is a crazy combo. I can drag and drop a photo of this woman and this dress and this bag, and then prompt it to make this woman wear the red dress and hold this leather handbag, and here's what I get. Now they've just added a really cool feature called Touch Edit. I can hold Control and click anywhere on the photo. I'm going to write turn the dress, and then I'm just going to hold Control and click the dress, and let's turn it white, and then also tie her hair, and then I'm going to hold Control and select her hair into a bun. And then also I want to swap this handbag with a first aid kit. It's just so easy to micro edit any image now. Or I can upload a business logo plus a ton of different product photos and then get it to make a flash sale poster. And here are some posters in various styles. If I click on an image, they also have this new edit elements feature, and this uses AI to instantly separate the image into layers, including the foreground, background, objects, and text, and they all become editable. I can select the text and change the font, reposition the text, and change the colors like this. Or I can also click on the background, for example, and then turn it into a dark background. And here's what I get. Lovart is the ultimate platform for design, and it's a breeze to create assets on their site. Try it for free via the link in the description below. Alright, afterwards you should see this line again with no error messages. After downloading everything, let's double check that we have the folder structure over here. So if we click into this pre-trained weights folder, notice that we do have these 5 folders, which are correct. And then let's click on Onyx first, and you can see that actually this is currently empty. It only contains a readme.txt file, whereas here it says there should be 2 folders. Actually, these are just optional, and it's expected that you don't see anything here right now. These files and folders will actually be created when you run this optional acceleration step afterwards. So we can ignore this for now. So let's go back a folder, and then let's click on this PersonaLive folder, and here we do see these PTH files, which are listed over here. So that's correct. Next, let's also look at this SDVAE folder. So let me double click into that. And then here it should contain config and this diffusion PyTorch file, which is correct. And then next, let's also double check this SD image variations folder. So let me click on that. And here it should contain these 2 folders plus this model index.json, which is correct. And then let me also double check within each folder. So let me click on this one. So these files do match what we see here. And then let me click on UNet. And then these files also match what I see over here. And then finally, we have this tensor answer.rt folder, if I double click into this, note that this is also currently empty with only a README file. And that's also okay. We can ignore this for now because this UNetwork file will also be created once we run this optional acceleration step later on. So everything looks good so far. All right, let's move on to the next step. Now, you could run this offline. In other words, this is not real time, plus you need to work with a ton of Python code. You won't have a nice graphical interface, so we are going to skip this method. If you're just going to generate a video that's not in real time, then I would just suggest you use OneAnimate or another better tool. But here are all the instructions on how to run this in real time. So first, actually, what we need to do is to actually set up the web interface. And this requires that you have Node.js version 18 or above. First of all, here's how to check if you have Node.js installed. So simply open up another command prompt window and then type in node-v like this. Now, you can see for me, if you do see a version number here and it's above 18, then you're good to go. If not, here is how to install Node. If you already have Node installed, feel free to skip to the next section. So let me exit out of this, and you'll need to go to this website, which I'll link to in the description below, where you can install Node. And if you click on Get Node.js, here you can download a Windows installer. So let's click on this. All right, afterwards, let me open up the installer and then click Next, accept the terms and conditions, and then Next, Next. And then I'm just going to click Next for everything and then click Install. And this is going to take a few minutes. And that's pretty much it. That's how you can install Node. Now, to make sure you actually have Node installed, again, let's open up command prompt again, and then here, let's type in node-v, and you should see your version number over here. All right, so assuming you do have Node installed, we need to run this code. Now note that these instructions are for Linux, so it's a bit different if you're using Windows. Now if by now you still have your previous command prompt window open after installing all those files and folders, you can continue from that window. But just in case you've exited out of that window, let me first show you how you can pull it up again while being inside your virtual environment, so we can run this code. So I'm just going to exit out of everything and then open up my PersonaLive folder again. And at the top here, I'm going to type in cmd. And then afterwards, we need to use Conda to activate our virtual environment, which we named PersonaLive. And afterwards, you should see the name of your virtual environment at the start of the line in parentheses, which signifies that you are now within your virtual environment. And then afterwards, we can start running this code. Now, actually, what we need to do is go into this webcam folder and then within this front end folder. So over here, we need to first change the directory to webcam and then /frontend. Oh, looks like I made a typo. Let me retype this. So it should be /frontend like this. And note that here, it already contains all these installation files. So all we need to do is type npm and then install to trigger the installation. Now, in order for npm to work, note that you do need to have Node installed first, which I went over in the last step. Anyways, afterwards, it proceeds to install everything, and you should see this line again with no error messages. And then afterwards, the next step is to type in npm run build. So right now it's proceeding to actually build the front end and the UI for us to use. So this is going to take a while. You can see it's like building all of this stuff, but eventually you should see this line again with no error messages. All right, so after the step you've successfully built the front end, you can exit this window. Now, the next step here is optional, but if you run this, it's going to speed up your generation by 2 times, and this is highly recommended. But this step takes about like 10 to 30 minutes, so make sure you allocate enough time for this to run. So again, I'm going to assume you've closed all your terminal windows. Let's go back in our virtual environment. So again, we just double click on this PersonaLive folder, and then at the top here, type in cmd, and then we need to use Conda to activate our virtual environment, which we named PersonaLive. After going into here, the first step is to run this code. So I'm going to copy it and then paste it in here. Now I'm getting an error because I think there's a typo. If I expand the folder, note that this should be requirements with a S. So let me paste the line back in here and then add a S over here and then press enter. So afterwards, it proceeds to download all the dependencies and packages that are listed in the requirements file. And then afterwards, you should see this line again with no error message. So the next step is to use Python to run this Python file. So let me copy this and paste it in here. So let's press enter, and what this does is it basically converts the PyTorch model into a TensorRT engine, which is going to speed up your generation a bit more. Now, this process takes around 10 to 30 minutes, so you can grab a cup of coffee and then come back afterwards. Alright, afterwards, you should see this finished message and then optimizing Onyx model, and this model should be saved over here. So if I open up my pre-trained weights folder and then Onyx and then unet opt, you should see that I have these new files over here. And then afterwards, it's proceeding to build this additional file. So again, this is quite GPU memory intensive. It took around 30 minutes for me, but afterwards you should see this message, finished engine building, and then saving engine to this location. And then you should see this line again with no error messages. So that signifies that it has finished basically building this acceleration engine step. In fact, you can double check by clicking into this TensorRT file, and you should now see that you have this new unetwork.engine file, which it has just created. Notice that this is around 3.5 gigabytes in size. Anyways, if you see this line again with no error messages, then that signifies you have successfully finished the acceleration step. Alright, next we can finally start up the interface. So let me show you how to start this completely from scratch, just so you're clear on how to start this the next day. So let me just exit out of everything, and all you need to do is double click on this PersonaLive folder, and then at the top here type in cmd to open this up in command prompt. And then afterwards we need to use Conda to activate our virtual environment first, which we named PersonaLive. So let me type this line in, and then you should see PersonaLive in parentheses at the start of the line, which signifies that you are now within your virtual environment. So the next step is to paste this line in here. Now there are 3 optional variables that you can add after the line. So let's go over this really quickly. I'm just going to paste this section over here first. And here it says if you're running an RTX 50 series GPU, then unfortunately, I don't think there's any acceleration method for this. So you'll have to type none over here. However, if you don't have an RTX 50 series GPU and you haven't done this optional acceleration step, then you can try typing xformers. So instead of none, let me get rid of that, and then type in xformers like this. Finally, if you did do this optional acceleration step, which is highly recommended because this will speed up your generation by like 2 times, then instead of xformers, you would use this TensorRT method instead. So for me, because I did do the acceleration step, I'm going to type in TensorRT like this. So let's press enter, and next it's going to proceed to actually generate the backend for this. Now you might see some future warnings like this, which you can just ignore. These are just warnings and not errors. Alright, afterwards you should see this line, UVcorn running on this address. Now, at least on Windows, this address doesn't actually work. What you need to do instead is use localhost 7860. So let me copy this URL and paste it in any browser, and here is the interface. It's as easy as that, and this is very straightforward to use. The first step is to upload a photo over here, and then here is where you can set the driving frames per second. If you have a really powerful GPU, then you can do higher, but for me, just to make it more efficient, I'm going to drag it to something like 15. And then next, we just need to click on Fuse Reference, which would basically make the AI use this face. And then afterwards, I can click on Start Animation, which will start up my webcam. Now, it takes a few seconds to load, but afterwards, you can now stream as this cute girl in real time. Alright, so that sums up how to install and get this up and running on your computer. Like I said, I've been testing out all the top open source video generators out there, but I haven't really come across any that are capable of generating videos in real time on just a consumer grade GPU. It's actually really impressive that this one is actually quite close in doing so. Yes, for me, there's like a 1 to 2 second latency, but it's still super impressive. Anyways, let me know what you think of this, and if you run into any errors during the installation, welcome to paste the error message in the comments below, and I'll try to help you troubleshoot as much as possible. As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.